Welcome. You're listening to Truly Rotten Potatoes, the Filmmaker series, formerly Australia's toughest, hardest podcast. But right now, you're listening to the easy part where I, Declan, interview filmmakers, normally from Canberra. And I've got a special guest, Ché Baker, in the studio with me today. Ché is a writer, director, editor, visual effects artist. He's a published author. He's a martial artist. He's an actor. I don't know if I missed anything there, but he recently completed his second feature film as a director, States of Mind. And his debut feature, Blue World Order, was developed in the same screen pod as my movie, Me and My Mates versus the Zombie Apocalypse. So I'm very excited to dive into a bit of Canberra's film history with one of the big players. Welcome, Ché Baker.
Thank you very much. I'm just wondering what designates a special guest rather than just a guest.
Yeah.
But then you rambled off all that stuff.
Episode 3. So I think the first two are just guests.
Right.
This is our first special guest. No offense, obviously, to our former guests.
I appreciate it. That whoever did all that stuff you spoke about sounds exciting. I want to meet them.
So I want to start, Ché, with your early days in film. How did you get into it? What did you study at uni? How did you end up on Dawson's Creek as a production assistant?
So history of my life in a nutshell. I was born in Yorkshire in England as a year-bargum little lad. And my family moved out here to Australia when I was 3. Grew up in the Blue Mountains. And by the end of high school, I had so we live sort of, 40 minutes out of town. It was just my brother and I. And besides beating me up, we had to find ways to entertain ourselves because we didn't have kind of the neighborhood kids. And so we would watch movies. That was our sort of special treat, a Friday. I think we got $5 pocket money that immediately went to a new release video on Friday nights. And that was sort of something that we just did. And then through high school, I was interested in a whole bunch of things and came to the time to decide to go to uni, and it was do I do astrophysics or sports science or art, or there's a whole bunch of things I was interested in. And my martial arts instructor actually said, what would you do if you didn't have to work for money? And I was like, I'd make movies. And he goes, well, do that, because if you love something, you'll be good at it, and if you're good enough at anything, you'll make a living. And way back when, the only uni that had any kind of sort of film TV production thing was Wagga Wagga. So
Charles Sturt.
That's right.
Yeah.
Off to the outback for that. And that was interesting. It was a very, the university again is sort of half an hour out of town, 20 minutes out of town. And so it was a very insular kind of intense little way to work. But because of that, I met a couple of exchange students who came over from this place called North Carolina in Wellington. And I became friends with them through various things, and then heard that they had a film studio over there and all this stuff. And so we didn't sort of have a reciprocal exchange thing, but they'd been able to come here. So I went and kind of forged hassled the international office until they set up an exchange program that I could go and do.
So you were still a student, you'd done a year or two?
Yeah, so I did 2 years, and this was my 3rd year, I think. So 1998, I went to North Carolina in Wellington. And, it's not unfair to say it sort of literally changed my life. It was, it was a year that, well, first of all, I had a terrible autoimmune disease thing that I didn't know about that I dealt with over there. So the first thing I learned was how great the Australian healthcare system is compared to, I have a flare over there. I didn't know what it was at the time, but that really, knocked me around in that year. But the place, Wilmington, is kind of, if you put a map of Australia and the US next to each other, it's sort of where Sydney is, on the southeast corner. And yeah, they had film studios there. I think it was Frank Capra Jr. was the president of the studios. And I think they got developed because of the film Carrie, the first original Carrie. They came and built them. And they shot, a whole bunch of stuff there. The Crow, Alex Proyas film, a whole bunch of other shows, but Dawson's Creek was sort of filming there. And so I managed to, part of the film studies thing, I got on that as an intern / and then that carried on to a production assistant. And I claim a date with Katie Holmes. There's a bunch of us who went to the movies one time, and our hands met in the popcorn, and so I claim that as a date.
I'm sure she does.
I'm sure she does. Yeah. She'll deny any existence, but and then there were other things that happened. So I went off that, and I went on to a film called Morgan's Ferry, which was Billy Zane and Kelly McGillis,
but Billy Zane is a big connection that'll come back later.
Yeah, so there's some of these people that you meet incidentally and you don't realize. And that's been my experience with the film world, is everything is laying seeds and investment, and they may not have an immediate return, and you don't do it for an immediate return, but things come around 10 years later.
Yeah. And when people talk about networking, it's really about building long-term relationships where you're just checking in with someone rather than some sort of transactional meet at a conference, give them a business card and hope they'll do a favor for you. It's like working with them, meeting them, knowing them as a person, 100%. And then slowly keeping in touch.
Yeah, it was a Henry Rollins. Henry Rollins was the other guy who was on it. There we go. I knew it would come to me.
Henry Rollins.
I didn't know who he was at the time. I was terrible. I was just chatting away. I'm going, oh, this guy's cool. So yeah, we had a good chat. It was Canberra CIT a few years ago. Actually, I gave a little speech called "How to Get Lucky" to the graduating film class, which was full of innuendo, and I'm sure I would be cancelled for it these days. But it was the primary message was, they say that it's all about who you know in the film industry. And I'm like, it is, but also who you know isn't an accident. If you invest in going to your friends' premieres, supporting people, you just said to me offline that, you bought all the stuff for Talk to Me and supported those guys. And, that's not nothing. Like it makes a sense. You go to the events, you go to the premieres, you invest in going to the markets or whatever it is. And like you say, it's not a transactional thing, but so much of it is about people just learning that, getting to know you, and that you're not a psychopath, because the film industry is full of interesting characters.
Yes.
And there's so much at risk that by the time it comes to work with someone, everything is recommendation. It's like, oh, do you know anyone who can blah, blah, blah? And it's like, oh yeah, I've got a girl, or I've got a guy. And you're not getting roles by putting in your resume and doing an interview. So it takes a long time for people just to get to know you, work out if you're legit and all that sort of stuff. And that is, that's why you can be, people at 50 are going, oh, I'm finally getting some traction, and they've been at it their whole lives.
Yeah. So when you were on Dawson's Creek as a production assistant, was that for a whole season or a couple of months, multiple episodes?
It was season 2, most of the season. I couldn't tell you exactly how many episodes.
And is that like in the break from school, or are you studying and doing that as well?
Yeah, no. So I was studying. I was lucky enough to sort of be able to design my own units over there, because I was a exchange student. I had, the ability to just I went to study everything, Spanish and nutrition and marine biology and music, and pretty soon realized I couldn't keep it all up. But I did a year of Spanish, which was great, and a whole bunch of things. But some of them were a film studies unit. I sort of, again, the university didn't really have a program with them. So I don't know why I was in this. I'm going to pioneer things at the time, but I convinced them that it would be a great thing to have a relationship with the studios, and that program continues today.
Wow.
Where they've got, but I was the first student to sort of have an official attachment, so I could do that as part of my studies. But obviously, you do that stuff, and it's 12, 14-hour days. So yeah. It's sort of, I missed a few nutrition classes along the way.
Do you remember what kind of thing you were doing? Like, were you on set? Were you driving actors around?
Yeah. Oh, look, I was PA. So when we're in the studio, you know, I was on the bells, or I was just running around bringing actors to and from the trailers, or
knocking on the door and saying they're ready for you.
Yeah, just being a general dog spotty. I mean,
were there any funny stories of knocking, or any of the person's not ready, or can you cover for me for a bit?
I don't know if I can repeat anything. Look, it's hard to remember everything because it was such it was all new and it was all big.
Yeah.
You know, when we would shoot on location, you know, it was downtown in a bar or something, and you're basically tasked with keeping everyone away.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, like, Dawson's Creek at that stage hadn't really hit.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, it had one season that was airing at the time. And for so long, look, I was like, oh, I'm going to keep that off my resume. It's so cheesy, whatever. I didn't realize what a phenomenon it would be, and you know how great so many of those people. I'm still friends with people from that set, you know, and track their careers and things. And you know, I made a short film while I was over there, and half of that actual physical film came from the loose ends, short ends of Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, wow.
You know, those guys helped me out, and so that year in Wellington was great.
I dare say if you were there for season 3 and 4 and you were still the guy outside the bar telling people it might be busier, it might be a lot harder.
Yeah.
They do give jobs like that to the young, you know, teenager or early 20s, least experienced person. I worked as a production assistant on The Code, an ABC series that shot in Canberra. And I was driving the actors. So I was doing airport pickups, hotel to set. And so I'm like, I'm getting so much one-on-one FaceTime with these people. And they're asking me like, what are the good restaurants? And I'm like, I live with my parents. I don't know the good restaurants in the city of Canberra.
Well, you've come a long way, kid.
So after Dawson's Creek and everything in North Carolina, you come back to Australia, graduate, and then start making stuff. And I also want to know about, where do you get the skills to produce, write, direct, visual effects, and also act and do martial arts and stunts? Like, they're so different to me that they all could be they're an individual discipline, but you have skills in all of these. So were you always doing pieces of all of them, or focusing for a year on this? How did you kind of build those skills?
You can definitely be my PR man. That's great. To be honest, mate, it was very much because there was no one else to do it. You know, I grew up, you know, my brother and my mum worked at a high school and she had access to the video camera. And so we would bring the video camera home on the weekend and make ninja movies where basically, again, he would beat me up. There seems to be a theme going on. But
that's why you start writing your own script.
Yeah, that's right.
I get to win for once.
Well, just by doing that, like I didn't realize it at the time, but by doing that, we genuinely learned a lot about framing and stunt performing and props but you know, just all the things, because there's no one else to do it. It's you and your brother out in the middle of nowhere, like doing everything. And you know, you're editing by going from one VHS to another, hitting pause, record, play and everything. And you don't realize how much foundation that stuff gives you.
Which is important, I think, as well, because if you were there going, every film we make has to be better than the last one, that's a different ambition than just like, we're making fun stuff, we're enjoying it. Totally. And then you go, oh, maybe next time we can try this instead.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you were there like, I'm getting graded on this, or I'm competing with other people, like it's a totally different mindset.
Yeah, literally no one else was doing it. Our high school was like 1,400 kids, and there was literally no one else that I knew of who was doing anything to, you know, it just wasn't a thing. It was more because we lived out in the middle of nowhere with not a lot to do. So it was a way to fill in the time. We make little Star Wars movies with Star Wars figures, and, you know, do effects where you'd put lighter fluid on where their head was, like, and you'd have one of them bring their gun up, and then you'd pause, and then you'd remove the head, light the lighter fluid on the head so it was like flaming, and then hit record again. And it just looked like their head went with it, and it was great. So little things like that as I moved into it professionally, one of my first sort of really big gigs was working for Apple and Apple Center stuff, teaching. So I'm sort of jumping ahead a bit here, but teaching video editing. So I learned computers through film editing stuff. So a lot of people knew computers, and then so I basically knew editing linear and then learned computer stuff through it. And I was fortunate enough to go to university with a couple of guys who were really ahead of the curve. They were in a couple of years younger than me, but they were hardcore into all the computer editing and stuff. And I didn't realize at the time they edited my film that I shot in North Carolina. And, we got it digitized to mini DV tape, and then I think they were on Premiere 3 point something, 4 maybe. But I didn't realize how far ahead of the curve they were. But just by their osmosis and them going nerd, megabyte, megabit, I learned that language. It's like that. I think it's Antonio Banderas, the 13th Warrior, where he gets captured and by this indigenous tribe or something, and slowly he's a prisoner, and they start talking, and then he slowly starts to understand what they're saying. It was like that with the nerd talk.
You just got to be in it.
Yeah. And so eventually I became a bit of a nerd, and thought I was way behind, but they were just so far ahead that even behind them, I was still ahead of the curve and able to work at Apple. And moral to the story was I came from, I was teaching people how to edit. And so a lot of the clients, I would go out to film editors who'd been established and, great editors, but they'd never touched a computer. And so I was basically interpreting, saying, this is how you do this stuff on a computer. And there's a lot of parallels to what's sort of happening now in the tech industry. But there were the ones who just were the purists and they didn't want to know anything about it. And then there were the ones who embraced it and really ran with it. And it was quite literally, within probably 3 years, linear editing had disappeared and track-based, non-linear editing had become, because it was a buzz thing, but editing on computers was the thing.
And you were there for the transition.
I was the interpreter for the transition. Yep.
That's awesome. I do want to talk about your acting career and where you came from, obviously making films with your brother that you're in. And then I think the first time I ever saw you was probably in Theatre of the Dead.
All right.
Or maybe in behind the scenes shots of promos of Theatre of the Dead or something.
Okay.
And so that's how I saw you first, and Blue Order, the short film. Those around the same time-ish. Was acting something like you wanted to do professionally as well, or was it just part and parcel of trying to make your own films and needing someone to be on camera?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I was like, I wanted to be an actor. This would be great. Very, very quickly, I realized that there was nothing to act in. So I had to write stuff and then learn how to make stuff. And also as I got older, I very quickly realized, I had goofy teeth and bad acne and everything. I wasn't a great product to pursue an acting career, and I was pretty realistic about it. And also I saw the people who were actors and how badly they wanted it, and I didn't want it. I was objective enough to know that I wasn't the right product to push. I remember going to a script reading once for a theatre show, and I thought I was pretty good. And then this guy next to me, was reading. We were each sort of reading the characters. It was like an audition thing, and this guy was just phenomenal. And I just kind of went, "Oh, right," and it just kind of gave me perspective on the skill level. So I knew that if I wanted to act, I would have to be all in. But I was by this stage far more interested in, being the dungeon master, if you like being the creator of things. So acting is one of those things that, I would love to do it. I'd love to do the actual acting, but there's acting and there's living the life of an actor. And I have a lot of friends who are actors, and that is a lifestyle that is not an easy one. I mean, none of it's easy, but at least producing and directing and things, you have a bit of creative control and a bit of agency. If you're an actor, you're at the end of a long chain of people's whims and things that are so outside your control that it's not a great career for mental health.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I love it, but I sort of will jump in front of the camera if we can't afford someone or if no one turns up.
Yeah. And you obviously had a little bit part in The Interceptor on Netflix. People can watch that. It's right at the beginning of the movie, isn't it?
I'm the first person to get killed in a Matthew Riley movie. That was my, I was the Splinter Unit director. Actually, I really wanted, that was the final day of shooting, and Matt kept me going. That was a really big political thing because, originally it was this thing where there's a guy in his underwear at the start of the film with his hands tied behind his back and that tape, and he's sprinting towards, sprinting away in the guardhouse. He escapes. And so they wanted someone who was really ripped, and they wanted like a young soldier. And
you had to just show them your abs. And
like quite literally, they were looking for all these people, and it was supposed to be a stunt role as well. And because I'd done lots of stunt training and everything, but I wasn't graded in Australia, and it's quite, it's quite an important thing. For safety and everything, like there's standards and things now. And so originally, so I had to do a tape. So I have this audition tape of me oiled up, on the weekend. My friends and I went and shot it, and I'm running along in slow motion with my hands. And the producers saw it. They went, "Are you auditioning for Mardi Gras?" But yeah, so there's quite an interesting audition tape floating somewhere that she'll never see the light of day. But as it turned out,
let's play the clip now.
Yeah. As it turned out, the budget got cut as we got right to the end, and so Matt rewrote it to be just a guy crawling along in the ice.
And they're like, "You can do that."
Well, I mean, I still had to. He wanted me to shave because I was too old. He wanted a young guy, and I'm like, if I shave, and then I literally in the middle of the studio floor, he's like, "Oh, well, show me you can do it." And so I dropped we're on the sound stage, there's everyone around. I dropped to the floor and I start crawling along in my best wounded soldier thing, and then it was like, yeah, okay. So it was
that's amazing.
It was actually like a real process, and they kept the whole 6-7 weeks of shooting Interceptor. They're like, "You're in, you're out, you're in, you're out," and so they were
pulling it away. Yeah,
that's funny.
Now, did you have a small role in Tintin as an actor? Were you? Did you get to wear a motion capture suit? Or
something? So I did about a year in New Zealand on the Hobbit trilogy, and I was the on-set colorist. So I did a whole bunch of the color grading on set, and then a whole bunch of the stereo 3D stuff.
And is that putting for them to watch playback, or is it for them to watch live? You're putting color grading in, so they're not just looking at raw footage.
Yeah, so it was sort of the first time they really were able to do it, but it was very much so. Yeah, I mean, I say that was my role. I was basically the DP's bitch. I did anything and everything Andrew wanted, and they would come over, look at because we're shooting on the Red Epics, and it's quite a flat color profile that you see. And I'd kind of do a couple of grade options, and they'd look at it, and then Peter and Andrew would be able to just kind of decide on the lighting, make changes live on set, and then literally email that grade down to the lab, and that was what would get applied during dailies to look at.
And what software are you actually using?
So that was a program called Mystica. So Mystica was chosen for its stereo 3D capabilities. It was very custom. So I learned what it's like to be at the pointy end of filmmaking. We had the guys from Red over there, and they would come and say, "Oh, how are you finding the cameras?" I had my own, Epic that I would sit there and I'd be like, "Oh, look, it's going to be great if there was a button here where I could do that." The next shipment, about a month later, it came along with the button that I requested, and
that's amazing.
And just having the level, the influence there, because this show was pioneering all kind of technologies.
So are you fed into before it goes to Video Village and everyone there is watching with 3D glasses and they're seeing your kind of temporary grade on the footage live as it's happening?
No, I had a separate camera. So I would go and I'd have the same settings as what the
DP is using on the main cameras.
And I'd sort of shoot my own stuff. It then got to the point where I did go and so after the cards come out of the camera, that footage is incredibly valuable before it gets backed up. That's like gold. So, there was a moment where we were like, oh, well, I'll just do the grade with it there. And they're like, no. So we had to.
I formatted it.
Yeah, like 100%. So I ended up being the gopher that would run the footage down to the barbecue, we called it, because there were a couple of girls who, were doing all the backups in this big thing that looked like a
data
barbecue.
wrangling crew.
Yeah. So I would do that, and then I would sometimes take that footage back and grade some of the actual. But I only needed like a sampling. I didn't need.
That's really cool. So you were in Wellington,
yes,
was it, for a year?
Yep.
And is that multiple movies, or is they were shooting them all at once, right?
They were shooting them all at once. So you would have, it'd be day 3. And so they walk in and go, oh, this scene's from, the first film, scene 56. And then you do another setup. Oh, this is from the third film, blah, blah, blah. And so, it was a continuity jigsaw.
The production office for 3 Hobbit films must have been insane. Just storyboards.
It was the whole thing.
Numbers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we started. It was going to be 2 films.
Yeah.
The decision to make it 3 films happened during the thing, and Peter just has it all in his head. When they talk about the mad genius, like he. It wasn't necessarily the easiest for people on the crew to know what was going on. So it was a bit like a student film in that way, in the sense that, what's happening? But he just had it all in his head, and he had the grand vision, and to hold that much in your brain, whole newfound respect for, people like that don't get to where they are by accident. You see this much of the iceberg of their talent.
Because you can't show up to a set like that and not know what's going on. And if you're doing 3 or 2 films at once, it's like knowing all those pieces.
Yeah.
They also shot 266 days or something, right? Like it was the same as the Lord of the Rings, I think. They ended up for principal photography.
Right. Sure. I don't know.
I don't know. I used to watch all the Hobbit ones.
Right.
I got to rewatch them and see if I can find you.
Well, it's funny. A guy called Michael Pellerin was shooting all the diary stuff, and I would often just go around with him. And so I'm standing next to him most of the time, so I barely make it into any of them.
You're
like
to the side of the
I was
camera.
I'm literally like we're walking around doing this stuff. Sorry, but to circle back to what you asked, being there meant that I got to know the editorial team and the motion capture guys, because that was all in the one little spot.
And then when Spielberg comes over to do Tintin.
So they came in, and it was Planet of the Apes was shooting, and a guy called Terry Notary, who's the movement coach for all the apes and everything. He was, getting stunt people and stuff to go and do the apes. I'd had a operation on my toe at the time, and so I physically couldn't do much. Like this is a comedy of errors, but it was about 4 years of my life I couldn't walk or run or exercise or anything. It was quite a challenge. So I really wanted to do that.
You could have been an ape.
I could have been an ape.
Maybe a broken toe would give you the
but.
I can be an injured ape in the corner of this battle.
But it was so we came back for a block, and then they called up and said, oh, do you want to come in? We need some background actors for Tintin. I was like, yes, but I didn't tell them I'd already flown back to Australia. And so I literally just jumped on a plane and went back. So no, I can be there tomorrow, because, I just packed everything up. I'd come home for the break or whatever. And then I got over there, and then there was that volcano that erupted. so there was an ash cloud thing circling the planet, so no planes could fly. So I got stuck in New Zealand for another like 3 weeks. So I was just available for a lot more of it than had been planned. But I ended up. It was early days, but there was a group of about 5 or 6 of us that were basically all the background characters for a whole bunch of scenes. And so I don't know.
Is that in just a big green screen volume kind of room? It's
not green, it's a volume, yeah. So it was kind of one of the first sort of volumes. If you watch the behind the scenes of Avatar or something, it's very similar. You're in a mocap suit and the environment is built out of sort of gymnastics gym blocks and things.
So you can climb and touch, have something to interact with.
So that was all good, but you could see a pretty good approximation of it on screen. They had monitors.
Oh, yeah.
And Spielberg was on his yacht. So we were getting up at like 4 a.m. and whatnot and going in and doing it because we had to fit in around when he was wanting to do stuff and he barely checked, So I claim to have been directed by Spielberg, but really he was on a yacht somewhere on an iPad looking at us saying yes or no and probably directing 3 other films at the same time.
Yeah.
But, it looks good on paper.
Yeah, definitely. What year are you in New Zealand? Like when is that?
That was 2011.
Okay, great. So that's after you've done... Oh, that's before you were in Theatre of the Dead and before
I think
Blue World Order, the short film?
I came back for a break and we were doing a rehearsal for Theatre of the Dead and Dallas Bland was the guy who was originally going to edit Theatre of the Dead, I think. And after one of the auditions, he was like, oh, I've got this short film I want to do. Do you want to come and act in it? And I was like, sure. I might not be here because I was going to have to go back to New Zealand, but it all worked out. And man, it was great. Dallas just had this short film and all I had to do was turn up and act. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. This is the fun part. I'm sure as you know, it's like everything else that goes on around it. But so we did Blue World Order, the short, and then, we talked about developing that into a bigger thing. The rest of it is a bit of, we went and developed it and then got I've got to be careful what I say about the history here because it might upset some people. So I'll just say that we developed the feature and then got a distributor and everything and kind of came up with this idea of, because the distribution triggers the funding for a lot of things. So I'm, at a conference and saying to the people necessarily, I'm going, what you need to do is have, like a development pod where you bring the distributors down and they choose the things because then, you're sort of guaranteed to unlock all this. And so that developed and then, the guy who'd already signed on as our distributor then decided not to. And so we went, well, okay, we'll do it anyway. And as much as that at the time felt very, we felt a little betrayed is the right word from it. But it was the best thing that could happen because we learned how to, I had to learn how to say, well, it was a bit of a FU, it was like, I'm going to make it anyway. And I had to learn how to raise money independently, learn everything about the producer offset and the tax breaks and all that sort of stuff, become an accountant and a lawyer and, everything along the way and work out how to do it and raise money and return money to people privately and do it all sort of outside the system. And that turned out to be the best possible thing I could have learned. I think I sort of say now, building government funding into your business plan is like winning the lotto into your business plan. It's fantastic if it happens, but it's not sustainable. You can't rely on it. And in Australia, I think that's part of the challenge is it's amazing that we have a supportive government funding model. And I certainly don't knock it, but I think so many Australians think that that's the only way to do it. And that if you don't get chosen or your script doesn't get selected, then, it's a yes or no. And that's sort of like operating like a studio. So I think finding other ways to do it, and there is no one way. Every project, yourself, every project's different. It's kind of, it's a whole new set of problem solving skills every time. But we learned how to do it. And so I've been able to do that twice now, touch wood. And it's sort of like you spoke about before, it's about the people that if you treat them right and you're good to people and they have a good experience, they come back and support you again and again. And I was able to give all the investors a really good experience. And so that reputation carried on to the next time we asked for money. I hated asking for money to be like, you write me $1 million check, please. Thank you.
So with Blue World Order, the short film, you were just an actor, but Dallas had already written it. And that's for Lights Canberra Action. So you get 10 days to produce that. Were you doing the VFX for that as well? Because that had a lot of crazy visual effects.
Yeah. So let me think back. Yeah. So Dallas pulled me in and from that point, I said, well, if I'm going to be in it, this is my ego getting in the way. I'm like, if I'm going to be in it, I want to produce it as well because I want to make, quality assurance. Not that I didn't trust Dallas, of course, but it was like, is this my good side? So yeah, I did a bunch of the visual effects, and I had a couple of friends who helped out on a few shots. But that was very much Dallas's baby. He made a lot of the creative choices and directed it really well. So yeah, it was originally called EMP, his script, and then we sort of, even before it was done, we talked about the bigger picture and stuff. So
because there's world building, apocalyptic, dystopian. You got to know what's going on in the background to make the short. And then over the next few, so when we did the low budget feature film pod, I think that was 2012 or 13 that it started. And then, so it probably ended it in 2013 actually, because I think that's when both our teams got into the top 10, had to write a script, a finance plan, a budget, and then do a pitch. Do you remember the pitch?
I do. Oh yeah.
That was definitely, for me, I was so young. It was like such a nerve-wracking experience.
No, it was great. It was good.
We had the distributor there, and like, I guess they opened it to the public, right? Like there was a full packed room of people just watching. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, look, I mean, I think going through the process for everyone was really good. We were in a bit of a different situation there, because, well, I won't go into all the details with that, but that was a bit of one of those things that seemed like it was going to be a negative, turned out to be a great positive for us. And I think there was yours and the Mission to Mars one that the Silver Sun guys were going to do. But as you would know, I mean, having been through it, getting something made, man, it's a miracle. Anything, and you got this great film out of it, and it was very funny. And like I saw Jim Jeffries, a clip came up again last night, and no one believes me. I'm like, oh no, my friends made a movie with him in Canberra. They're like, what?
It's very strange. I think Jim Jeffries and Billy Zane have only made movies in Canberra because of us. That's a strange.
There you go. We can
piece of trivia.
Yeah, we can do that.
I remember that process before we had the pitch, but it was like once we'd been picked into the top 10, it was like 7 weeks to write the whole script. And you had a good team of Christian, Sarah, Dallas, and yourself, like smashing it. I was still at uni, and I'm like writing the script in between classes and stuff. And then you go to, when you eventually decide we're making the feature no matter what. That whole process was weird. They said they said one team would get 300,000, and then they split it and said actually 3 teams will get 100,000. And so you've just done a whole finance plan for having 300. We don't have to go into the details there, but that definitely made things harder. And then they're like, you guys find the rest of it.
Yeah.
When you are making the feature, you were going to co-direct it with Dallas now? It was like more of a partnership.
Yeah, look, that was the original intention. Dallas moved away to Melbourne, so he became less involved in a lot of it. We'd sort of written it together. Christian immediately sort of jumped out. He went off to work on the films that had funding. So he was like, "Oh, see you guys." I was like, "Okay,
Yeah."
But that's fine. And
were you going to star in the feature as well? Was that part of the plan?
So this was interesting. No, so I had originally it was going to be like a real martial arts, showcase thing. So I had this guy Bren Foster who was going to be the lead, and he's like an extreme martial artist. He's just done a film with Daniel McPherson called Beast in Me, where he plays sort of the bad guy, and he's done Steven Seagal films. He's just, I think he's shooting a film called Relentless at the moment. He's one of the world's best extreme martial artists. Amazing talent. So we had him, and he was the only guy who could do the stuff that I wanted to do on screen, because I was like, this is going to be the most kick-ass. No one's going to have seen anything like this coming out of Australia. I think it was like 3 weeks out, maybe. I can't remember. It wasn't that far out.
But very close.
It was close, and
everything's locked in at this point.
And he was like, "Oh, look, sorry, he got a TV series called The Last Ship over in the States, so he had to bail and go and do that." Which, yeah, as you would, it was like, I think it was like a Michael Bay TV series or something.
Oh yeah,
and that was a major role. So then we were left, and I'm going, there's no one that I knew, and we reached out to people who could do it, and it was literally one of those cases where I'm like, well, I'm going to have to do it. And so the idea of this character was that he was had been scavenging the wasteland and stuff, so he was like skinny and lean and round. So I'm like busting my gut trying to lose weight, and then shaved my head. And then the next day, so we're literally about a week and a half out now, and I've committed to having to go, okay, I'm going to have to do this. And then one of the other guys that we'd gone out to, a guy called Jake Ryan, his tape finally came in. And I knew Jake from Taekwondo days. We used to compete. And Jake was like in the heavyweight division, he was like the Australian rep at the World Championships and stuff. So he was about the only other guy I knew of who would be able to sort of do the physical stuff, martial arts. And then Jake came along with this tape, and it was fantastic, and we're like, yeah, got to have him. So I just had to deal with being bald for a little while, but he came along then, and yeah, as soon as we were able to get him, number one, I didn't want to have to do everything and act.
Yeah, that is insane to me that you're that close to directing your debut feature. Everything's in place, the scheduling, the producing it as well, especially being low budget, and then also being like, I may or may not be the main guy in this, which means I'm on camera all the time.
It is, yeah. It's totally. I wouldn't have considered it had it not Dallas also potentially going to be there. But yeah, you sort of, there's curveballs, like you know yourself, the amount of curveballs that come along, and they're not the ones you can plan for.
No.
Like you've got everything in place, and then there's something. Filmmaking is just problem solving. It's problem solving unique, bizarre problems that can never happen in any other circumstance.
And a lot of the problems are impossible for you to solve, but you've got this crew, and it's like, does anyone know anyone who might know someone who can get us one of these?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew a guy.
Yeah.
Make that call, make it happen.
Yeah.
We had the same thing. We had this military vehicle in, me and my mates, and we had seen it like at an event, and we left a note and said, hey, we would love to like hire this car. Can you call us back or email us or whatever?
Yep.
They got in contact. It was like all good. We get in contact with the guy like the day before, and we're like, hey, we need the car on these days. Where can we pick it up, etc. He's like, oh, I'm in Perth and I've got the keys with me.
Yeah.
And we were just like, what do we do? We had no backup. And it's a very special, it's like a military Range Rover thing that had like an Australian, like a yellow kangaroo painted on it, and it had a pickaxe and all this stuff. And we were just like, where are we going to find this? Yeah. And we were going to, the producer, Dan, was like, I think we'll just paint my car camo and we'll use that. And I'm like, that is going to be so awful. Like, these are meant to be soldiers in an apocalypse and stuff. And then I think, the main production designer, like, knew someone who knew people who had cars. It was
Yeah.
like, and then eventually, like, and it worked out better.
Yeah.
The one we got, it was
Yeah.
even better. But oh my God, for 48 hours or something, I was like, this is terrible.
That's the whole thing. Like, I think the difference now, if these points come up, there's less freak out and there's more like, okay, well, this is a signal we're going to get something better. And because it almost always is.
And there's social media. There's just, like, you can go on a Canberra Notice group and be like, if you have money and you say it's for a movie, people are like, okay, you know.
And Canberra's incredibly supportive too. Like, they're, you know, it's still enough of a novelty here that people are like, ooh, a movie.
Yeah. The guy who gave us the car in the end gave it to us for free. He was like, no, I'll just, you can drive it. You can be there.
Great.
And then I think we gave him like a case of beer as a thank you.
That's
like,
awesome.
Yeah.
We had the same with the States of Mind with this old pickup truck that starts a thing. It was this old Chevrolet thing, and I was just driving back from Fish Week near Derry Road, and I literally saw it, and I start beeping this guy and like getting him to pull over, and he thought, he didn't know
this guy's going to bash me.
what something had happened, and I'm just, but you have those opportunities, like, can we use your truck, whatever, and he lives in Goulburn, turned out to be amazing. He built a whole like back side to it and everything, and I don't think you'd get that kind of love and support in many other places.
No, they just say, pay up.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting that most people, when they make their first feature, they try and keep it really small. Small cast, minimal locations, maybe like one cool building they have access to. Usually it's local actors, limited stunts, limited costumes. Blue World Order, you went big straight away. And then maybe I haven't seen States of Mind, but I've seen the trailer and I know that's a bit more contained. So maybe you've done the reverse, because usually in the second one, people are like, now I want to get bigger. Tell me about like putting Blue World Order together and the kind of scope and ambition that you had for it.
Yeah, it is interesting. Blue World Order was originally going to be Dallas Bland and myself with one handy cam. And we were scavenging the wasteland, and whoever, and it was going to be like whoever wasn't on camera was shooting the other guy. So it was the ultimate minimalist.
This was the low budget feature pod thing where it was like, can we make the next Blair Witch?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Like,
It was.
But that makes so much sense that you do diary style. We're in the apocalypse. It's just that's not what it ended up being. It's drone shots and 6 DeLoreans on Lake George.
It got. It got bigger well before we started shooting it, but we looked at the resources we had. We got access to. It was kind of this like, imagine if we got this, imagine if we got that, and it was a real lesson in realizing that how related everything is. So, once you get, I remember having a chat with Rob Chauvelson, who shot it for us, and we were talking about a whole bunch of things, and he said, look, it's just got to look and sound like a real movie. The rest of it, and it was one of those things that it's just like, if we're going to do this, because so many films are potentially great, particularly in Australia, they just don't look like movies because they're the choice of just format. If you walk into a bookstore and you go to buy a book, they all look like books. They've got a professional cover, they're typeset. If you have the best story in the world, but it's stapled together and it's just hanging there, people don't take it seriously. And so we were just like, the first thing to do is just try and shoot it on a format and get it to a level of production polish that made it look like a real movie at least. And so that then upped the budget from what we were going to do. And then as the story grew, as we started getting people in, once you get, Billy Zane and Jack Thompson involved, suddenly you've got to up. You can't just turn up and not have a trailer for them and not have this. And then it started expanding. And so it was a case of jumping out of the plane and building a parachute on the way down.
Yeah.
But still trying to, we still had to work really hard we still didn't have any money really, and it was finding money along the way. And I kind of, I know what Blue World is and where it sits, and I'm very clear-eyed about it. I'm really, really proud of it given the resources and stuff, because an audience doesn't care what happens outside the screen, the frame. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And the problem with Blue World turned out to be, rather than it going out as look at this super cheap indie film that they've done really well with, it looked like a bad Hollywood movie. It looked like it got treated like a B grade kind of Hollywood movie that was a bit cheap and amateurish. And that was a very different category. And so, a lot of people enjoyed it, but it's still super cheap.
Yeah.
So, some bits don't necessarily come up the way that you hoped. But
well, you're talking to someone who can relate to everything you're saying. Exactly. And it is this fascinating thing where if you can get a name actor in a film, it takes you to a level where there will be more interest. And I've said the only reason anyone would be watching my movie 10 years later is because of who's in it. And Billy Zane being in your movie means you get, he was on TV promoting it and stuff in Australia, all these like amazing things. And there's a part of you that's like, I kind of wish we still did the small version with local actors, because the expectation is so much smaller. And if someone clicks on this and they go, this isn't the quality I'm expecting on a Amazon streaming platform or something, you're competing against like things that literally, I watch The Walking Dead and I go, 10 minutes of this show had 5 times the budget of our whole movie.
Yeah.
And the stunts that they're doing, we could not. We could do one thing, and they're doing 100 of these kills in 10 minutes or whatever. It's crazy. But you go, the audience doesn't know any of this. They are just watching what they're seeing. And if they want to see a Billy Zane movie or a Jim Jeffries, their expectation is going to be. And so it's a blessing and a curse. It's like the only reason someone's clicking it is because of who's in it. And that's also giving them an expectation that this can compete with the films they're used to seeing, which are major studio movies where the budget is well in the millions. So I totally understand that feeling. When I saw Blue World Order in the cinema, the one thing I remember thinking at the premiere actually was, these guys did 1,000 VFX shots. Like, that is insane. Do you remember how many are in total? Because it was like everything was sky replacement. Like, I was like, that would have... That just
I'm glad that's what it left
much.
you with.
Yeah.
I can't remember. A lot.
And I assume a lot of that was just you on the side.
Yeah, there's just a lot of, I mean, that's the thing is you get, I'm a big believer in just because you can do everything doesn't mean you should. Like, I try and get experts where I can, but I've sort of got a generalist skill set where I could get away with doing a lot of it. And then I'd also know what I can't do, what's outside my skill set. When you were saying the expectation, I remember this moment in Dendy at Canberra where you went up the stairs, it was a $20 ticket, or close enough to, and you turned right to go and watch Avengers Infinity War and left to go and watch Blue World Order.
Yeah.
And you're literally same price and you're directly competing with them.
Yeah.
And
I remember for mine, it was, we went to a screening in Brisbane and it had the marquee of the movies on, and it was us and like Mission Impossible 5 or something.
And it's not like yours costs $5 to watch and theirs costs 18.
No.
It's like the ticket price is the same.
Yeah.
So that's great, as in you'll recoup your budget better, but it's also like, how do you get anyone, if they're there spending their whatever, to go and choose your film in that sense? And look, this is a bigger conversation all about exhibition and distribution and blah, blah, blah. But you do realize that, there is a level of expectation, because your audience, particularly these days, they're used to seeing the best production quality for free, as in they put on their streamer, you pay your $16 whatever a month for Netflix and you can watch 2 movies or 100 movies. So, effectively you're paying for 1 movie a month and then you're getting all the others for free. And that's still cheaper than 1 cinema ticket. And so the level of expectation of what, just to get to that thing where it looks and sounds like a real movie is insanely expensive, let alone is the story good or does it work? And people are going to disagree about that anyway. The same thing one person loves. I just went and saw that new movie Christie with Sydney Sweeney. It was a Q&A screening of that. The guy next to me, one of my friends, was like, is this a joke? Is this, I'm going to, like, he literally couldn't sit through it. And then the girl behind me was in tears going, oh, I connected to that so much. And I'm going, we're watching the same film in the same environment and the same thing. And so you can only ever try and make something that you're proud of and to your expectation. And what an audience thinks about it is sort of their business, you know. I mean, you try and make something that appeals, of course, but
did you ever have the feeling that you would see someone at one of your screenings and you'd go, oh, I don't know if this is for you. Like, I don't think you're going to like it. And I need to sell I want as many people here as possible, but at the same time, I want the right people here. And then I've had the experience where we had this one screening where I was in the back row and right in front of me was, let's say, some 70-year-old couple. And I was like, this is going to be awful. My film is for teenage boys. Yeah. It's so it's like swearing. There's a lot of sexist, racist jokes. They're doing drugs. There's sex. There's blood and guts. Everything that I'm thinking, and I have to sit behind this person as I'm going to see them like walk out in front of me or just be saying this is disgusting. And then they laughed like the whole time, and they came up afterwards and like shook our hands and stuff. Like, that was so funny. That's great. And it really made me go, oh, like, you can't actually, 100%. You never know.
You never know. Yep.
I don't think they knew what they were in for.
Yep.
And I thought they were going to have an awful time. But it still definitely happens the other way. Where you're like, this movie is for you. I wish you'd go see it. And then other people are like, oh, I don't know if it's for you. And you're going to have a bad time. You're going to hate me. But it's not, things aren't for everyone.
Look, I mean, that's great. 100%. One of my friends is an author called Matthew Riley, and he writes these action movies as books. And you go to one of his signings and it's middle-aged women, it's like teenage boys, it's like, and it just kind of, you never know what people like in their little private world, you know. And so when you have to pitch these films for demographics, it's for, you know, my film is for, you know, 20 something. Yeah. And they're like, it's such a scattergun approach because people bring their own lens to stuff. You know, you just have to get it out to as many people, and there will be people who love it. And they're not the people you expect, like you say, with your film, you got a couple of old couple going, oh, I like the cheers when they chopped off the head.
So speaking of Matthew Riley, he owns a DeLorean, right? And you use that in Blue World Order. And then when he made Interceptor, you were, as we talked about, you were an actor in it. And then you were also like, was it Second Unit or BCAM or something?
So I've known Matthew since, must have been 2000 or something. I was giving a talk at a digital media conference. I was like chairperson of one of these things. And I was literally, this is one of the universe stars aligning. For the drive, I'd hired Contest on audio cassette, the audio book, and I was listening to that at the time. Anyway, so I was at this conference, and then I was up the back, and the sound guy goes, oh, that guy there, that's Matthew Riley. I was like, oh, like the author? And he was like, yeah, because he recognized his hat or whatever. And I went, oh, I'm literally listening to his book now. I didn't know. So I went up and just said hello. And he'd been watching me for the last 2 days on stage, so he knew who I was. And that, I guess, him meeting me in that context gave me enough credibility that he would have a conversation with me, whereas normally he might have just said, get lost, kid. But you know, I told him I was listening to everything, and he was there scoping out film stuff because he wanted to make a movie version of Contest. And so we started talking about it. You know, long story short, we made this 5-minute thing. It's the first 10 minutes of Contest, which again, for what it was great, but I'm sure she'll never see the light of day again. But it got him, this is back in the day, it got him a TV series up in the States called Literary Superstars with, was it Jenna Elfman, I think, was going to star. And then he moved over there and the first writer's strike killed it. So it killed the project and stuff.
Yeah.
But so he moved over about 9 years ago permanently, and he left his DeLorean with me. He was going to sell it, and I was like, man, let me hang on to it and take care of it for you, because if you ever decide to come back or whatever, it's here. I'll keep it safe. And then I may or may not say I'm going to use it in every possible film there is. But
you'd even drive it to the Blue World Order screenings.
We
and
did,
stuff, so
yeah.
people could take photos.
We had
with
a couple. It's just such an unreliable vehicle. Any DeLorean owner will tell you, and I know them all now. But yeah, so when you were talking about the film expanding, you know, we did a cut of Blue World Order, and it goes from they escape the camp and then they turn up at the resistance camp, and that's what the script said basically. And we watched it, and you go, oh, it's kind of boring. Like this. We got all the drama, and then you go, how can we make it more exciting for them to get from point A to point B? And then, you know, that kind of, I knew a guy who had all these kind of Mad Max style cars, and I'm like, oh, we could, because we'd use them as props around the camp. And then I'm like, oh, what about if they steal the DeLorean and these guys chase them? The premise, of course, was that there was an EMP and it knocked out all the electricity. And so all the, you know, in that time in the world, most of the cars were electric cars. And
so only old retro cars you can still use.
So we have all these cobbled together Mad Max style things. And so that spurned the idea of this big car chase. And again, I mean, we were amazed, like just the vehicles that we got on screen were awesome.
So this was like a pickup shot after you'd already cut the film.
So this was
because it's kind of the most iconic shot. Like when is it a drone or a crane on Lake George? With all the DeLoreans and stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, that was like that. Oh, that happened. I don't know, 6 months later.
Yeah. Wow.
Where, you know, sort of got this thing and watching it going, and this is what budget does. This is what people don't understand. They think budget is, you know, the quality of your VFX and the quality of your camera. Budget is your ability to revise. Budget is your ability to sort of go, watch it through and go, oh, you know what, we need to fix that, or we need to reshoot that, or that's not working. And, you know, if you're just scraping through getting the film done, you sort of get what you get.
Yeah, and you don't get those pickup days. Yeah. Which, every film needs them. Even when it's just like, we need a hand opening this door. Yeah. We need a little few seconds here, or some exteriors. We had the same thing where the whole film is inside this building, and I'm like, that's the point. It's claustrophobic. And then you watch the cut, you go, we got to go outside. And we just wrote a new scene, and we're like, let's get a bit of action. We'll get the actors back that are the local actors, so none of the expensive people. We'll do one big day where we get a whole bunch of little things that we can just spread throughout to tighten this up and like connect some things.
And did you find it made the film better?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like there's some of the first laugh, the first zombie kill we added to the basically opening credits.
Right.
Because we're like, this movie goes so long before anyone kills a zombie. And like, that's just not something you're thinking about until you've started to see it. And you're like, people are going to want to see early on, set the tone. So we have him like drive over this zombie with a mower and blood and guts spray out of
Which is iconic. That's your iconic. Yeah.
That was all done. Yeah. That's actually me on the mower.
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't get Alex Williamson back. So I'm like the same build roughly. Yeah. So I put the hat on and the shirt and I'm like, So anyone who's going to make a film, like make sure that you have, they call it contingency, but like just know in 3 months after you've wrapped, you're going to have to get some stuff, and you might not be able to get your actors back, but shoot them from behind, get them to dub in voices later, like something.
So the biggest lesson in that with us was we had Billy Zane for a weekend, and we had the big finale. It's in at the back of the brickworks, sort of this big quarry, and all the extras and all the crew and all the main actors there. And so there's supposed to be this finale scene and a fight scene and stuff. And Billy, how do I best put this? We spent the entire weekend just shooting Billy's close-ups. That was the only way to get through it. Billy was on a plane on Monday. We hadn't known Billy after that, and so the only thing that I'm like, So I was at this stage. Our first AD also, got fired early. So I was first ADing the whole film.
Oh wow!
And
lucky you weren't also starring in it.
well, I mean, yeah, but I'm not one of those guys. I promise. Who's like, it's got to be. I'm like, I'll do it because I have to. But it gave me the ability to make those calls on the day, and the call was, and our other actors who travel from Sydney were accommodating themselves. They're getting pissed off, going, "Why are we even here if we're not getting shot?" And you just have to kind of placate everyone because you've got to see the big picture. And to get the film done, we just had to get all Billy's lines in the can. So then that disappears. That's in February. All these extras are standing around in 40-degree heat, being frozen. And then it took 6 months to raise a bunch more money. And we came back in July when it's freezing and had to shoot all the reverses and the fight scene and the rest of it. So every
Canberra
time
looks very different.
Well,
in winter to when it does in summer.
The light was a lot smaller, but Canberra's probably one of the only places we could have done it because in the quarry, like we don't get a lot of rain here, so it's not like it was snowy or anything. Some of the grass was a bit different, but we get away with it. You watch the end scene, and cut every time it's on Billy's face, it's February. Every time it's a reverse, it's July. And it cuts together, and there's a reason we replaced all those skies. Because I'm like, well, there's only one way to make them more consistent. But that was the thing. It's like we finished that thing, we're out of money, and it's like we only had half of this scene. So I had to convince everyone to come back, even trying to convince some of the extras to come back because then, they're in all the background shots. And not many of them wanted to come back because we made them, freeze, like be still because they're sort of paralyzed.
Yes. And now it's cold.
All day, and now it's cold. And so that's one of the things where I'm like, people will watch that scene and I take it as a badge of honor as an editor that no one has ever said to me, "Oh, was that different?" They just go, "Oh, Billy Zane was good in that." And I'm like, thank you. Yes. But they're the things no one else will know.
So to tie everything together, when you're on Interceptor, the DP is Ross Emery.
Yes.
And I assume you must work up a relationship with him. He's obviously big time Hollywood DP now. I, Frankenstein, Bait. I think he was on second unit stuff for Covenant, Alien Covenant. And
yeah, so he did the Wolverine. He did Raised by Wolves. Yeah, second unit Shang-Chi, I think. Yeah.
And then obviously your second film, States of Mind, which is coming out soon, you get Ross to shoot it. And that must be, for you, like a big get, right? Like,
yeah, so that was... So on Interceptor, I was like a splinter unit director and the director's assistant. So I sort of had a lot of, I guess, high-level access to people. And I was basically Ross's tech support with his a bunch of his sort of computer Mac stuff. So friendly and stuff. Not heaps and heaps to do. I wasn't working sort of directly with him. Anyway, States of Mind again was it was a COVID film. Basically, it was like, how do we? So I did this short film, VR Grandpa. I was doing a PhD on the effect of the pandemic on the Australian film industry, and VR Grandpa was an exploration of that. How do you shoot something with all the constraints when you can't travel, when you can't have makeup artists, blah, blah. And so it was exploring all the tech, AI aging. It was never, it was all new virtual production stuff. And again, that was me acting in it, but maybe I do want to be an actor. Maybe I've missed my calling.
Yeah, you've been on screen more than you seem to remember.
So we did that, and a few people on Interceptor had seen that, and I'd shown, they were talking about doing contest. So I'd set up for the producers and Ross and everyone to come and see this big virtual production demonstration and things. So again, it was just one of those things about being in the position where I had the credibility to be taken seriously at some point. So the idea was I was going to shoot this COVID film where it was contained, as you say, one location, all the lessons I'd learned from VR Grandpa and Blue World. And it was literally a film to work backwards. So what resources did we have? What actors did I know? And it was very much a showcase for particular actors. It was like, I've got a bunch of these actor friends who are really, really good, but for whatever reason haven't broken out. And I'm like, I'll write a vehicle for them. And so it started, it obviously developed along the way, but I started just going, again, it was going to be a student film, basically, with these actors. And I'm like...
But always a feature.
Always a feature, but I had this house and, at one stage we were going to do it as like a 360 VR film. So it was basically just
like
have
a tech demo.
Yeah, have them
experimental.
Have them act the whole thing out, but shoot it in 360.
Yeah, wow.
And then that was still sort of on the cards, but it turned into just making a film's hard enough. But so I wanted to find a DP to shoot it. And so I went and had coffee with Ross to ask him if he knew of any upcoming hungry young DPs.
Yeah.
And we chatted for about an hour and I'd explained the story to him and the way I was planning on doing it and everything.
Had you written the script at this point?
I'd probably written the script or at least a version of it. And he sort of said, "Oh, would you let me shoot it?" And I was like, "Yes." And then my brain in the background is going, scramble, 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 scramble.
So just like when you get Billy Zane, you're like, oh, if you're doing it, that means we need to step this up. This is now bigger than what it was going to be.
It instantly changed the kind of production. It wasn't going to be the handheld, Blair Witchy horror movie thing. But Ross was coming on because, and this is the thing,
would you let me shoot it? I love that as a phrase as well.
It was, it's classic. But it is about, you never know what someone else, you've got to find something else, what they want. Yeah. So he was sick of all these massive, Marvel films and everything where he had...
You shoot an eighth of a page a day and it's just in front of a blue wall.
Yeah. And any creative decisions have to be done 6 months in advance and signed off by 20 people. He wanted the ability to try stuff and do something small and see if he could make something with limited resources. And he is so proud of the film. I'm really honored that I was able to get someone like him. But it was like the Canberra lighting crew, John Waterhouse and those guys who came up, who were able to give Ross what he wanted with this tiny, one truck and a few guys, compared to the machine that is, Marvel. And Ross he was sold. He was just like, he is the biggest advocate for it because he's just so wrapped with what we were able to get on screen with the limited resources.
How many days did you shoot States of Mind?
It was really quick. It was like 15.
Don't you think sometimes that's the appeal as well, where it's like you can be looking at a blue screen for 3.5 months or 6 months, or we can shoot this whole thing and in 3 weeks we're done and you can go do whatever you want.
He looked at the schedule and he's like, he just didn't get how it was going to be possible. And of course it wasn't. So we did 15, but then, there were other things that meant we had to come back for another week in January, but that was sort of nothing to do with him. That was prosthetics and monsters and actors having breakdowns.
So States of Mind it's a brain or body swap movie, right?
It's
a horror comedy. Like, how would you describe it to someone?
States of Mind is about a meditation retreat in a haunted house. So it's all these disparate characters come to this one place for a psychic competition. It's sort of like a game of Psychic Survivor, so they think. And then they soon realize that the house has a few minds of its own. There's some different nefarious things going on. And it is a comedy horror, which I have learned is one of the hardest genres to sell at markets, as you would know.
Yeah. And in my movie, we were 95% comedy, 5% horror. And that, whatever your ratio is, you're letting someone down.
Yeah,
right?
well, So I mean, but I'd look at Zombies, me and my mates, and say it's a comedy.
Yes,
and
nothing's played to actually scare people.
Yeah, it's like I've just come back from AFM, the American film market, and they're getting more and more and more conservative in what they want. They just want straight horror, and they want the kills, or they want straight comedy, or comedies are hard. They don't travel, as they say, but straight action. If you say it's an elevated horror, and they're like, okay, but if you say it's comedy horror, they're literally, before they even look at the thing, they're not interested. So the way something is pitched, and mine's not. It's a quirky elevated horror. It's a bit tongue in cheek, but it's not full slapstick. It's more of a thriller. There's a bit of laughs in it, I hope.
Yeah,
but it's not.
It's almost like, is the construction of the scene, because there's a gag, are we trying to make people laugh at the end of this, or are we trying to scare them or have them feel tense?
Yeah.
And whatever you're falling over on that seesaw, you have to hit it, because that's how you're going to sell it. That's how it's going to be promoted. And if people go to this and go, hey, I went to watch this scary thriller called States of Mind, it was actually kind of funny. That can completely ruin their experience. And the opposite, if they're like, I went to this comedy, but it was like trying to be scary the whole time and not that funny. It's really hard to walk that tightrope.
We went to this film on Christmas Day a few years ago called Downsizing with
I've seen that with Matt Damon.
Matt Damon, and it was pitched as a comedy, and we went in thinking it was going to be this lighthearted comedy.
And it kind of is for the beginning.
It's got a few funny bits, but man, the film is not a comedy, and so it was a good film, but it was just not the film we were going to see.
Yeah. And if you sell your film to a distributor who actually, a big one that actually takes it on and makes the marketing materials, they can make that trailer whatever they want, and they can put the poster.
Yeah.
And I think at least with my film, I'm like, at least my poster says this is a comedy. Like the people who are in it, the way their faces are and stuff. If we tried to sell this as like a legit horror, people would think it's the worst thing ever, even more so than they do already.
No, that's great. It's great.
Unless your scenes are, the purpose of the scene is trying to scare people, don't say you're a horror. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
And I know people that are making films, and I see the trailer and I go, this is uneasy, but it's kind of more like an indie drama that has some whisper of a supernatural in the background. And I go, even that is going to be hard. Like the people that are fans of the horror genre that will go and see a no budget film or a unknown cast horror film, they have expectations. And honestly, I've really come around to like, your job as a filmmaker is to satisfy people's expectations. And so like, know what your genre is, know what your audience is, and successfully execute on that promise.
If it's exactly as you say, if what's on the poster is the film they're going to see, they'll come out happy. If it's not, if that's not selling it. So we've got about 4 different posters that are different levels of, one looks like it's a crazy weird science kind of ensemble cast thing, and that's kind of the wacky 80s vibe of it, because the film is a little bit like that. And then there's others that are a lot more somber that probably make it look like a psychological thriller, which it's sort of more that way. The comedy comes from the characters in the film reacting in certain ways, rather than there being kind of, set up gags. So it's not, it's certainly not a straight comedy, but as you say, getting the poster right is kind of hard, because we've had different distributors, because we've shopped it, we've got a sales agent now. But we just did this big screening at AFM, and I know Sony was in the room and a couple of other things, and they all stayed, which is amazing for a buyer's screening. Usually buyers screenings,
they know what they want, and if it's not it, they can walk out in 10 minutes.
Well, they've often already bought it, and they're just coming in to check quality, for 10, 15 minutes and come in and out. But AMC cinemas in Century City is like the best cinemas in the States, and so it looked and sounded amazing, and I'm sitting here getting chills going, well, this is really good. But you have no control over presentation. Most people are going to watch it on their iPhones or at home anyway. So
the posters that you've taken out to the markets, did you design those yourself or work with a graphic artist?
So I had a graphic artist who I would do like a hand-drawn sketch. I'd sort of say, I want
So I
something
can't
something
add
like
that
this.
to your list of skills is also poster designer
No.
or Photoshop expert.
No. Look, I mean, I get the Photoshop file and I tweak it as I need to for whatever. Like I can use it, but no, I certainly don't.
I'm glad we found one thing today.
Oh, there's so many things. I suppose, yeah. Look, I'm competent at a lot of things, and I only excel at a couple, and I really try to. In my perfect world, I would just get. And this was a big lesson from The Hobbit. Everyone who was on that film was the best in the world at what they did. The people who were growing the grass for the sets, for Bag End, they were the best grass growers in the world. They knew exactly how long it would take, the type of, and it was weird. There were 1,000 people on set at some stages, you know, with the crew and everything, or on the payroll. And you're like, every single one of these people is the best in the world at what they do. And you get surrounded by them and it gets normalized really quickly. And I was sitting down at lunch ahead of time. It was sort of one of the early times, and I'm chatting with Andrew Lesney, who was the DP, and we were talking about VFX and everything. And I'm sitting here going, oh, yeah, like I sometimes see the CG stuff and it sort of lacks contrast, you know, like you shoot it for real and those blacks would just disappear and you'd lose detail. It's like they're scared of losing detail. So you know, they want to see everything in the shadow. And I was just having this kind of conversation. The guy next to us leaned over and he started asking, he's going, oh yeah, so what do you think about this and that? And I'm some punk kid just giving my opinion. But this guy turned out to be Joe Lettieri, who was the VFX supervisor on, you know, Avatar, blah, blah, everything. I don't know what he did. He was on Apes, yeah. So like the best of the best. And he's sitting here
actually engaging with
me, listening to my opinion and point of view, because in that moment I was Andrew Lesney's colorist. I wasn't some punk kid.
Yeah.
And so, you know, sometimes it's not about what you're saying, it's just the context that you get to say it in.
Is Andrew Lesney the one who has this famous quote about, and I think it was from Lord of the Rings, or it's like, where's the light coming from in this scene? And he's like, the same place as the music. Like, it doesn't actually matter that it's perfectly motivated if it sells the moment that you're trying to sell in this.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I'll check it out.
I want to talk about states of mind and just kind of what you've learned from trying to take it to film markets, having a finished film that you're happy with and trying to sell it, and what are you hearing in meetings? What are you finding out that people could take away for anyone who's trying to make their own film?
There's an ideal way to do it, which is where people have come on early and they have put money in, and it already has a pathway to audience. It's all set up. Studio films, you know, they know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. Or if you get pre-sales on things, that's great. The challenge with some of that stuff is every one of those entities has a creative say. They'll tell you what they need, and that might be different for, you know, if they're making a shark film, they might need it to look a certain way. And if it's not up to standard and they're going, I've got 6 buyers in China who are expecting this and that's not it, therefore you're fighting. You know, so comes with its own set of problems.
Yeah. And on that, you wish you could go to one of these markets and all these distributors tell you, give me this film.
I'll go make it.
Yeah, and you go, okay, I'll go make it. But by the time you've written it and you come back to them, they go, oh yeah, a couple of those bombed, so we're actually onto this now. You can't chase that trend.
Yeah.
So they'll always tell you, and when you ask them, what are you guys looking for? They'll always say, oh, just anything good, you know, anything that
no one knows anything. The answer is no one knows anything. So we've done it where we've made the film and then we've gone and all the way through I was trying to get people on board, you know, and they're like, oh yeah, looks the script's great. Let us know when you've shot something. You shoot a bit of a trailer. Oh, the trailer looks great. Let us know when you've got a cut. You get a cut. Oh yeah. Oh, let us know when you've got all the VFX in, and then you get to the end of it, and for whatever reason, there's slates for whatever, and they'll go, oh yeah, look, it's easy for them to say no. They've got no skin in the game, so it's easy.
And you don't even want them watching a final cut if they've already seen a rough cut, because you've had it ruined, like, the story. They're not going to be oh wow, you really made it with VFX and sound. It's suddenly amazing. They're like, I kind of remember.
They all say they can watch a work in progress, but you literally need to make it as polished as possible. You only get one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah, and you got to put your own sound effects in and your temp music and stuff. If you just leave it raw, they go, I can fill it in, and you go,
they can't. They have no. They're doing sales because they've got no imagination. Sorry, sales guys. But to answer your question, it's what are they looking for, and what the feedback is very much what I had learned this time round. I had lots of offers early where, we'll take it. You know, hardly anyone is giving MGs anymore. So MGs are like minimum guarantees stuff, where they basically, they pay you something for the film, and then whether they sell it or not, you get to keep that money. It's essentially a loan that they recoup from sales. And lots of companies were going to take it, but I held out for almost a full cycle saying, no, I want a sales company that is going to put an MG in, so they've got skin in the game and they're going to make an effort. And I must have had 60 meetings. You know, they're all interested. They all want you to send a screener and stuff. And some of them come back and say, we'd love to take it. We'll do a revenue share or blah, 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 because no one wants to take a risk. And then I was in Cannes and went in, and this guy, I hope he won't mind me saying this, but there's the receptionist girl there, and then this guy comes around and he's a sales agent, so they just want to meet buyers. So as a producer there, you're kind of a pariah at these markets, because they want to meet with their buyers because they're selling and that's their time. Anyway, this guy comes out who looks like he's just been playing video games in his mum's basement, Italian guy, and he's like, you'll come back tomorrow. You come back tomorrow. And so I came back tomorrow, and I nearly didn't go because I knew his English wasn't great. He wasn't going to get I didn't think he would get the sort of the verbal gags in it and everything. Anyway, so we're watching it, and then he's staring at the trailer, and he's like, this is like Sam Raimi and American Werewolf in London. And I went, yes, yeah. Like, they're literally my touchstones. And he goes, send me and so I sent him the link, and he came out and he goes, I love it. And he got really excited about the film. And so I got a really good deal out of them, you know, MGs and performance clauses and all this sort of stuff. And I would have never, nearly didn't turn up for the meeting. And it's like you were talking about before with the audience.
With the audience, yeah.
You just don't know. And so it's a numbers game. You just have to keep going and presenting it. And the right person, and so long as you're persistent enough. And I think the biggest difference, Blue World, you know, I had a big company, ArcLight, take it. And that was the worst experience of my life. I had to sue them. They would lie to my face. I don't bad talk anyone in the film industry, but I will badmouth these guys because they are just the worst of the worst. And that was a massive learning curve for me as well. And I realized that your contract is only as good as your ability to enforce it. Yeah. So they broke contract, and I'm like, I'm going to have to take legal action. And they were literally like, good luck. Yeah. We'll outspend you. Yeah, and it was like, what I was trying to chase would have cost me more in legal fees than what I was trying to get
back. Now, it's almost been 10 years since that deal would have been made, right? Do you get the rights back?
Oh yeah, so part of Blue World, part of that settlement was I got the rights back straight away, and found another home for it, and you know, got it out in a piecemeal way. Yeah, not many of it's done really well in England. So I realized this trip, I didn't know. I haven't seen any money for it, but But yeah, and that's the other thing. They're super dodgy.
Yeah, the whole distribution thing is kind of a racket. It does not do anything for the filmmakers. The best thing it can do is give you the clout to make your next one. But yeah, I kind of lean towards putting it out yourself and like controlling it a bit more. But then they can do things that you can't do.
Yeah, it's the relationships, you know, like it's all about I mean, my only criteria was someone I could trust. I didn't
Yeah.
actually care about the money for this thing. I just wanted someone I could trust this time
Yeah.
around. And I've gotten to know, I've been to markets for 10 or so years now. So I've gotten to know a lot of the people and the players, and I see the dodgy stuff that goes on, and I know a bit more who to avoid and who to hang out with. And that's been really, really helpful. But again, you end up doing all the stuff that facilitates what you really want to do. I wanted to be an actor. I ended up being a director producer. And, you want to be a producer, you end up being a sales agent. If you want to be a whatever, you end up being
no one's going to film school because they go, I want to be a sales agent one day.
Right.
Yeah. The worst part is when you, if you have different territory releases and you go, why is the guy in England like doing all this amazing stuff? Like they're making a crazy poster, they're getting us into supermarkets, whatever. They're selling to these territory, other ancillary places. And then you go like, why is my Australian one not able to get me like I'm doing horror interviews for the English guy and this guy's doing nothing for me. And then you kind of, you end up having to do it all yourself anyway.
Yeah.
Like we made all our own posters.
Yeah.
We made our own trailers. We did everything. And so we're virtually self-distributing this in Australia.
Yep.
But we do have a distributor who is like spending our money on printing real posters that we're like, where are these going to get used? And they just sit in boxes. And stuff.
Man, it's and are you still getting much feedback on the film, as in like is it still popping up and people saying, oh, we saw it here, or is it still having a bit of a life?
I'd say it had quieted down. So we actually put it on YouTube this about a year ago or 6 months ago, and we left it on YouTube and it had tens of thousands of views. And then it got 5,000 views in like a week, and we never even promoted it. We didn't say it's on there. We just like chucked it on there quietly, and we were like, why is it getting any views? And then we realized it still had the nudity uncensored, and we were like, oh, I think like people are sharing this like around high schools or whatever.
It's a skin flick.
Yeah. And we're like, oh, well, the whole account could get taken down. So we had to like use the YouTube editor to put like a censored thing over. And then we've been kind of fixing it up for the 10-year anniversary. And so we did a screening for Halloween that was a 10-year that actually had kind of new stuff in it, like rework stuff. And I let the producer do that, and he was like, do you want to see it? And I'm like, I'll just see it at the screening and then we'll talk about it after. So I think we'll tweak it a little bit more. Like I watched it and I was like, I need more sound effects in here, and I just want to change some coloring here and there. And then we'll probably put it out ourselves onto an aggregator or something like that. But yeah, our international deal is up as well, so we got that back.
Great.
And yeah, it's just about whether we still think there's an appetite for it. I want it to just be available for whoever wants to watch it. So even if it's just free on YouTube, like that's fine with me at this point. Are we going to do anything extra to it? I don't know. Like people do watch it, but it's not like we're out there pushing it. And yeah, it's the movie has the tail that it has. Like I guess people will still search Jim Jeffries and see that it exists and watch it. Yeah.
And now I'm flipping the script on you, and you're doing another one. Is your musical going to be the next film, or are you?
No, that's stage only. Right. And that is because I'm like, I want to stand in front of people and have them respond in the moment.
Yeah, get some actual
not make something and wait 2 years and
then just overhear them bitch about it in the cinema. I had some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a guy come out of one of the screenings that one of the like special screenings in Canberra we were doing, and I had a little table because we were selling DVDs and we had posters and stuff, and so he knew I'd made the movie, and I was like waiting for the movie to be over, and he came out and just goes, how much longer has this one got? And I was like, it's about halfway, so another 45 minutes. And he was like, all right. And we was going to the bathroom, and I was like, that one hurt.
There's a few. Yeah. There's a few that hurt. In Canberra, I would sneak into the back of a lot of the screenings just to sort of gauge it. And look, generally it was a great experience, but there were these young guys who came out and they just were ripping everything at it. And it was like, I just kind of was in earshot, and it was just that reminder that your competition is Star Wars.
Yes.
It's like this generation is coming up and they haven't been through the the bad 80s, practical effects thing. They're like, it's like it's got to look perfect. Or
imagine if your movie had a little counter down the bottom of dollars spent as the movie went.
Yeah.
And so it ends and it's like a couple $100,000, but you see a Star Wars, it's like $200 million. You're like, that is more money than anyone you will ever meet. Everyone that you know in your life will earn in their entire lifetimes, probably times 10,
Yeah.
Like it is such an astronomical difference. And as you said, the ticket price is the same.
Well, this is why not everyone's doing it, like it's and that's the thing when you go to the States is you meet the people who are doing it. You're surrounded by, a lot of people ask why I go to LA a lot. And I'm like, yeah, like the place has got its problems and everything, but you are surrounded often by people who they've come from all over the world to live their dream and they're doing stuff. And so it's inspirational and it's a reminder that it's a real thing, like in Australia, they say, oh, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I'm a filmmaker. And they go, oh yeah, cool.
What's your day job?
Yeah, what's your day job? Yeah, quite literally.
Yeah.
And it's a legit question, but when you're around people who are really doing it and you realize that, proximity and being there are people like in Canberra, you'll go out to dinner and, you're an advisor to that minister, blah, blah. If it's a political thing, then, they're everywhere. In LA, you'll at a dinner, it's like, oh, you're executive for Sony. Oh, you're in acquisitions for, Lionsgate. And
yeah, you're in the mailroom at CAA.
And it's just by being there, you make those connections. And like we were talking about earlier, it's not an accident. Your networks are not an accident. They're things that you very consciously, I spend a truckload of money on travel and accommodation and stuff that is intangible, but it is, it is literally the fact that I can now call people that I wouldn't have dreamed that I would have their number on speed dial, sort of thing. Speed dial exists anymore. I'm sure of my age, but it is, it is that years of repetitive showing up and hopefully not being a crazy person.
Absolutely. Well, we've gone so long. I feel like we have to end it here. Ché, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Good luck with States of Mind. I'm so excited to see it when it's out. Hopefully get some cinema releases or a cool premiere in Canberra or something.
It'll be theatrical in Australia. We've got that sorted. So
amazing.
With Monster Films. So yeah.
And congrats. You're one of the few people in Canberra who made a feature film and then made another one. So that puts you in the rarefied air.
Well, there's plenty more to come. I'm sure, there's a few more Canberrans who've made their first now. So hopefully they'll get another one out of the bag.
Thanks very much.
All right. Thanks, Dick.